Okay, friends, good to have you sharing with us in these moments. The four of us are together because we had a travel experience together. I think you know all of us. Maybe a few don't know Steve Oak, who has served as our lay leader and been part of our lead team for several years. And we received an interesting invitation. I guess that invitation came late summer, and it said, "We're inviting to the Church of the Resurrection." Say something about that church. It's in
That church is in Leawood, Kansas. Adam Hamilton, who many of you have probably done some of his studies here at Central or at other churches you've been involved in, started this church out of a funeral parlor.
Yep.
I think it was in the early '90s,
Hmm.
and it has since grown to be the largest United Methodist church in the world. Single local church
In the
if you would
in the
say.
country.
In the country.
There are larger churches in Korea.
And so they invited the 400 largest United Methodist churches to send representatives, pastors, lay people. And so we took up the invitation and went, and we want to share with you what we learned, and just so you can be a part of the conversation we were part of.
So what was the conference? I think that'd be helpful maybe to kind
Yeah.
of frame it.
Yeah.
Steve, you
Well, I
wanna-
think in a nutshell, it was about the future of the United Methodist Church. Where do we go from here?
Yeah.
And there was a kind of a two-part. I don't know how to say this. There are two parts to the conference. There was a young clergy session of which Luke and I were a part of with about another 150 young clergy. So folks, was it 39 and younger?
40 and younger.
40 and
Yeah, there was some discussion about what constituted young clergy, but yeah.
Yeah.
and then there
A
was
few of us were on the edge.
and then there was a also a group, like Rob said, of the 400 largest churches, both pastors, associate pastors, and laity from those
lay
churches.
leaders, yeah. And Steve, how you remember just a second ago? How many of the churches ended up showing
I think
up?
it was 240 some odd of those 400 invited.
Right.
Yeah, so well over half.
Actually sent representatives.
And somebody probably wants to know what made you want to go. I know one reason I wanted to go. I have found during the pandemic it's been rather isolating. We haven't had as many conversations with other churches and leaders, and questions began to arise, not just about General Conference. Will there be one? What will be the outcome? But I like what you just said about the future of the church. I wanted to go and be a part of the discussion with some contemporaries about where we've been, where we're going, and I found it really helpful to get there and talk not just about the general conference issues, but about how have we been surviving the pandemic. And we heard some interesting statistics right when we got there, didn't we, about that?
Mhm.
That was helpful.
And I think it was important for us to go because right before the pandemic, our church had a lot of momentum around, where were we going? What were we doing on this issue? And then, like you were saying, Rob, we really had to go into pandemic survival mode that all of us had to go into. And not that we're not still dealing with the pandemic, but now we're looking forward to back to that hard and good work we were doing pre-pandemic.
Well, it was timely for Adam and the Church of Resurrection staff and the leadership with Tom Berlin and some others. Tom Berlin's out of Virginia. He's been a General Conference delegate, wrote some legislation that we're going to talk about in future videos for them to bring this group of churches together. And honestly, I agree with you, Rob. I think just being in the room with other churches that care about the United Methodist Church, that care about what happens in General Conference and what it might mean or might not mean for us. And it's timely because General Conference could be this coming August, September.
Right.
And so this gave us almost a full year from the time the conference met to process what we've heard and then to make sure to share that with everybody back home here.
And I just want to thank the people of Central in some ways that spurred us on, because the way you as a congregation have responded in wanting to be a part of the conversation. When we had the listening sessions, almost 30 of them, 350 people
Was,
involved. That just showed kind of the heart of Central, wanting to be well informed, wanting to have a sense of where are we and where are we going.
And so I want to ask, what were some takeaways? We went and what did we come back with? Specifically, I'd like to hear first from Steve, as a layperson. They sat us separately. So you sat with other lady from across the country and got to meet them. And Rob, Luke, and I sat with other pastors and deacons and et cetera. What was it like and what was the takeaway for you in that space?
Well, really the primary one was the energy around building something new. This was not a salvage operation or picking up pieces. This was a creative and high energy seeking of really who we are, defining who we are, and who we want to be going forward. And this kind of a corollary to that, a secondary thing was how very proud of the work that we had done, as you mentioned in our listening sessions. We were brave enough to ask hard questions and brave enough to hear people's answers. Mm-hmm. Wasn't always what everybody wanted to hear, but we asked the questions and we gave it. Like I said, we didn't always hear what we wanted to hear, but we should have had every opportunity to say what we wanted to say.
Yeah.
Luke, what about you? What did you come away with?
Well, as a person who is just loves North Carolina barbecue, if there's one place that I might could go and enjoy the barbecue, it's Kansas City. I will just say that as one takeaway.
I have no barbecue comments.
No, I think for me the takeaway was whatever happens with General Conference, if there's a split, if we become multiple denominations, if there's not a split, we don't know exactly what's going to happen. But what I heard in Kansas City and what I felt is that there are hundreds of churches throughout the denomination that care about inclusion and across the spectrum, but care about inclusion and want to be Wesleyan and United Methodist, and so that we're not going to be alone, whatever happens with General Conference. And that, I think that was really telling for me, especially at 18 months into the pandemic when we went to this conference.
Right.
And so it has felt isolated or alone, or we're wondering, will there be a denomination? And the thing I took away is that we will be able to be United Methodist at the end of all this. And we'll be able to be United Methodist and stand by our statement of everyone without exception. And we won't be alone. And so I'm thankful for that. That's what I heard.
Yeah, I like what you both have been said about kind of moving forward, but I was glad that we also reflected on our Wesleyan heritage and said we had a chance. They have these polls there. Using our phone, they could just poll all of us, and immediately we would see the response. And we were asked, what is it about our Wesleyan heritage that we thought representing the most important values that we don't want to leave at the curb when we move into the future? And words like grace, I think the grace emphasis, what were a couple of others right at the top? It was
connectionalism.
Yeah. The balance of kind of the head, so, the warm heart experience.
Church for thinking people.
Church, yeah.
Yeah,
The
and the social
justice.
Justice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me, I was right there with you, Rob, knowing that there were so many people that still held those convictions and wanted to move forward. And also I took with it that none of us really know the answer. That, we went and heard a lot of things, and that, the future isn't set in stone yet. And I think a lot of times the way that we've heard about General Conference and the coming General Conference is that everything is already decided and things are going to happen this way, and that's just wasn't the case after being at this conference, and that there's energy in the central conferences in Africa and the Philippines and elsewhere for us to stay united, which has not been one of the central talking points after the called General Conference in 2019. So that was some encouraging and kind of, at least for me, newer information.
So from here,
Right.
This is the first of 4 videos. We're going to share 2 videos about legislation, about a piece of legislation called the Protocol, a piece of legislation called the Christmas Covenant, and then we're going to come back with one more video just to kind of share our thoughts about what this means for Central moving forward. And that's kind of what this is going to be about. But is there anything else, just any last words, like when you think about this conference, when you think about what we experienced, like I just want to make sure we say that.
One little sidebar of reassurance was they asked all of us kind of our current pattern of attendance and worship. And what we're experiencing here in terms of percentage of what we had pre-pandemic was about across the board. But you also heard that so many of these churches were like what we're feeling at Central, we're still thriving, we're still moving ahead. And that was encouraging to me.
I was happy that there was, diversity of thought and voices there. I mean, this wasn't just a conference of only people that think one way about the issues that we're going to talk about or would only vote one way on each of these pieces of legislation, but they were all people that were of a Wesleyan mind. And I thought that was unique, and I think something that'll be our strength moving forward is a diversity of thought, but a unity of heart, so to speak.
Well said.
Steve, anything else?
No, just the positivity of the meeting and the energy and excitement about the future.
Friends, thanks for watching. Hope you have enjoyed this, and please don't hesitate to reach out if you have other questions, but also look to the videos below and the other videos to get more information.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.